Welcome to the WSIS+20 Forum High-Level Event 2024. And I'm here today with our moderators, high-level track facilitators of the Leaders Talks. So we had some very inspirational and exciting Leaders Talks comprising of all stakeholder communities, from ministers, head of regulatory bodies, other important ministry officials. We had the civil society, private sector, technical community, the academia, and a whole range of discussions around the different WSIS action lines, emerging trends, opportunities, challenges, and beyond. So I'll start with Dana. Dana, what was the key takeaway from your Leaders Talks, and can you let us know what it was about?
So my Leaders Talk was about ICT applications unlocking the full potential of digital, and we explored the intersection between technology and socioeconomic progress. So a lot of the interventions touched upon challenges and opportunities brought about by ICT. So some of the challenges included the persistent digital skills gap, the misuse of technologies like AI, as well as the divide between urban and rural areas in terms of digitalization. But again, more of the opportunities were discussed, such as digital public goods, rise in e-employment and remote work and the benefits that brings, as well as the opportunity to still create robust regulatory frameworks to deal with this uptake in ICT. All in all, the panel really stressed upon bottom-up approaches to truly create meaningful change at the grassroots level, as well as a new paradigm shift for a multi-stakeholder collaboration. So it was a very engaging discussion.
Thank you, Dana. It's a lot to cover, isn't it? ICT applications, a whole range of activities from e-governance to e-agriculture to e-education. So thank you so much. I'll move on to Tim. Tim, you've been in the WSIS process, right, since its inception. So what was so interesting in your Leaders Talks?
It was a great WSIS this year. I think my session was meant to be discussing the importance of trust in a connected world and how that contributes to the delivery of the SDGs. But my biggest takeaway was thank you to all the speakers who kept to their 3 minutes. And as a moderator, I was so focused on that, and trying to make it fun and energetic. But in terms of the main takeaway, I think there was widespread recognition of the importance of the WSIS process, but also that as digital technologies evolve and change, trust in them is becoming more and more important. And that we're beginning to understand, if we didn't already, that cybersecurity has a key role to play. And I think a takeaway for me was that it's up to every single one of us to ensure that we do have a safe cyber community that we can engage in, and that digital tech isn't used to create too much harm.
Thank you, Tim. Of course, cybersecurity is a cross-cutting issue, and it is our action line on C5 that ITU leads. So thank you very much. Move on to Jennifer. Jennifer, you had a truly multi-stakeholder panel, bringing in stakeholders from different regions. Really vibrant one. Can you share some more of what happened at your panel?
Sure. I was actually very inspired as a moderator of this session, and it was on the ethical dimensions of the information society. What was common throughout the entire session was the universally held values and beliefs, and how that translated in the different case studies was actually very interesting. The way different states implemented how they considered ethical dimensions in the use of ICTs. I think also very important is from the design phase to the development phase to the implementation phase. The consideration of ethics is really strong throughout. And we also had input from academia when they looked at the comparison of how soft law and regulation really enhances how we view these things. So for me, it was truly inspirational listening to all of them.
Thank you, Jennifer. Indeed, ethical dimensions of the information society, really important discussion to have. We went to Liberato. Liberato, what were your Leaders' Talks about, and what were the key messages that you took out of it?
My Leaders' Talk dealt with emerging technologies and how they impact the development of sustainable futures. I impressed on my panelists the fact that the articulation of that future is in the plural. And they, in so short a time, they were able to articulate the risk and the perils as well as the opportunities of emerging technologies. But all throughout the panel discussion, the impression to the audience was that we must not only look forward to new technologies, but that we must look back to the foundational principles that came out of WSIS. I was in Tunis, I was in Geneva, I've been with you for all these 20 years. And what's impressive is the seizing of that opportunity to say, look, it's a fast-moving technology, but the infrastructure must be built with human rights and ethical thinking, and that connects with the ethical dimension in the WSIS Action Line.
Yes, thank you, Liberato. And the process has evolved, isn't it, with the evolution in technology and the emerging trends. Thank you so much. So, Helen, yours was also a truly multi-stakeholder panel where they discussed quite a lot of range of issue within your topic. So, can you please share with us what were the key trends that came out of it?
Sure. So my topic was on partnerships to foster international collaboration and cooperation. I believe that's WSIS Action Line C11. And I think one of the main takeaways is that digital transformation is truly a multidisciplinary engagement, and that requires the participation of stakeholders all across the board. So we're talking about academia, the technical community, industry, governments, and international organizations, and to have them all come together and collaborate is a really powerful thing. One aspect that to me stood out significantly is the idea that it's not only about access to the internet and digital inclusion. We need to make sure that those spaces speak to the local communities and that they are indeed reflecting multilinguistic and multicultural spaces for us to achieve real, true digital inclusion.
Exactly. Thank you, Helen. Engaging the communities and co-creating with them is really important as well. So we move on to Shaharyar. So Shaharyar, tell us all about your Leaders Talks.
First of all, it was an amazing experience to hold such a very knowledgeable panel that I had, where some of the key learnings were the digital transformation journey of specific countries from Asia and from GCC, the different challenges and opportunities that they had. One of the key solutions that were shown in the ICT, the potential of ICT applications, that's what the main theme of the session was. And we have seen examples of some innovative solutions with early management of alarm systems for disaster management. We had successful journey for use of applications to provide digital public IDs to residents and use of ICT in agriculture. So there was certain number of innovative solutions shared in my session. But one of the key takeaway, which I thought was very important, was the perspective of academia on accessibility of all these digital information, especially for people at disadvantage. So these were some of the key learnings from my session.
Thank you, Shaharyar. And now, some of your leader talks, most of them actually, also looked at the issue of the WSIS process, how the WSIS process has evolved, what have we achieved in 20 years, and in fact 20 years will be next year, and 19 years, and what is the future beyond 2025. So really, let's try to summarize this in one sentence. It's a challenge. Dana, over to you.
So the panel really touched upon a lot of the sustainable development goals that are also related to the WSIS Action Lines, and there were examples given related to quality education and the use of AI and machine learning in education. There were examples given with the use of ICT for green energy, and there were examples given with telecommunications infrastructure and how that empowers e-workers today and digital nomads as well. So a lot of areas that are related to
So highlighting the synergies between the WSIS Action Lines and the Sustainable Development Goals, and also the alignment between the WSIS process and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Thank you, Dana. Tim?
Yeah, it's interesting reflecting back over the last 20 years. I think all of the panelists reported on how their countries or organizations had contributed in terms of the action lines and the SDGs. But as you said earlier, I think a really important point is that those action lines remain very valid today. And there's far too much reinventing of the wheel. I mean, the things we were talking about 20 years ago are still being talked about all too often as though they were new. And a takeaway for me is actually we now need to be thinking beyond 2030. We need to have a rigorous, clear framework through which digital tech's contribution to international development can be understood, managed, processed, we can all sign up to, so that the poorest and the most marginalised benefit. It's not just the rich and powerful. And if we don't start planning now, when it comes to 2030, we won't have something in place.
Thank you, Tim.
So I should say WSIS and the work of the ITU has been absolutely central to that progress.
Thank you, Tim. Yes, of course, you highlighted the point about the WSIS action lines, implementation of the action lines. It's actually a beautiful framework of so many UN agencies being involved in the framework to implement the action lines based on their mandates.
I'm not sure we actually need something new. Let's carry on doing what we've done well and keep doing it. Anyway.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tim. Move over to Jennifer.
Sure. Actually, I really want to say +1 to everything that Tim has said. It is very clear that the WSIS action lines are still extremely relevant. My panel in particular is on action line C10. And it's very evident in how the case studies are presented that ethical dimensions need to be in the forefront, underlining every single process that we're looking at in ICTs. And the common good is something that we're all striving towards. So in the implementation of this, I think we can go beyond 2030. This is something that we need to keep as a foundational basis. It's not something we need to reinvent the wheel, to borrow a phrase from Tim. And I think it's still extremely inspiring and how people implement. That's the part that is important and new, but the basis needs to stay.
Thank you, Jennifer. So not reinventing the wheel, but to use the foundations which are already pretty strong. Thank you so much. Liberato.
The WSIS action lines were crafted 20 years ago. They are alive today precisely because of the WSIS model of involving as many stakeholders. If you involve many stakeholders along the way in all of those 20 years, that process is what makes it alive, because every year, every time, the stakeholders, the model that ITU and your team has demonstrated, has infused new energy, new ideas, especially in a technology that is fast developing, faster than our minds could imagine. And the participation of civil society, I fight for that all the time in many other instances within the UN system. I didn't have to fight it with you. You bring it already for all the other stakeholders, be it academia, philanthropic organizations, educational institutions, technology and industry. It's built in. That's the secret. Oh, that's well-known fact, not secret. And it must be prospered and flourished.
Thank you so much, Liberato. Yes, in fact, the inclusive spirit and, of course, the convening power of the WSIS forum, bringing together stakeholders from all parts of the world and different stakeholder types. And that's what's needed in a conversation, all stakeholders around the tables. Thank you so much. Over to Helen, please.
So I think you asked us to summarize in one sentence. I'll do you one better. One word, multi-stakeholderism. I think that the notion that in order to foster digital cooperation for digital inclusion, it really lies on multi-stakeholderism. And during the session, we talked about how the WSIS process and IGF are the places to have these conversations, and they're the ones where we should be talking about digital inclusion and ethical design and emerging tech, and to keep them within that space given its very multi-stakeholder nation.
Thank you, Helen. Shaharyar, the last word.
Yes, I think the last time that I attended WSIS was 5 years ago, and the key thing which I realized is relevance. So it was relevant back then, it was relevant when it was launched, and it's still relevant because of the actions that we are taking. It's not just something that is on writing or we're talking about, we're actually living up to what we are saying. This is what is the difference which WSIS brings in. The strength of WSIS is basically encouraging others not only to take action themselves, but encouraging all multi-stakeholder partners to tag along and have a collective effort towards achieving the SDGs. So that's what something is which is meaningful.
Thank you, Shaharyar. So I'd summarize our conversation in one sentence then. So WSIS, as we discussed, is a multi-stakeholder digital cooperation process in action. So thank you so much for being here with me today and for being a part of this WSIS forum as moderators of the Leaders Talks. Thank you very much.
We just thank all of your team for making it so enjoyable.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.